Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Ahora empieza su programa, el show del doctor Roy Aranda. Temas sobre los efectos que tiene la separación de los niños de sus padres, traumas que afrontan los indocumentados, violencia doméstica, el porqué de la violencia en las escuelas. Llámanos en vivo al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6, y haz tus preguntas al aire. ¡Comenzamos!
Saludos.
Okay, so of course he recovered, and we had to put off the second anniversary, which was okay, because I had the opportunity to do another what I thought was a really good TV show last week, focusing on couples and couples getting closer and learning to work together, and that was with Dr. Patricia Pitta, and she has agreed to come back for future shows where we'll focus on the children. So today's actually the 43rd show. It's hard to believe that in 2 years, 43 shows. En 2 años, 43 programas. A mí me parece algo increíble. Nunca lo pensé. I never thought that I'd be here 2 years later. I really didn't think that. I'm not sure what I thought, but that's what we're going to focus on a little bit. Today's show, we're going to focus on the making of the show, the creation, what went into it, what were some of the nuts and bolts of making it, and my dear friend, co-host for today, and consultant Dr. Peter Kanaris will actually take the mantle, and he will be asking me the questions. We also have a very special 10-minute video clip prepared by Ezequiel from El Salvador that actually showcases and highlights very briefly the shows that I've done so far. And when I saw it the first time, I got goosebumps because I didn't realize the breadth of the number of programs and topics and the wealth of the guests that I had that were so generous in donating their time to you, to the viewers, to the audience, to give something, to give a product to you. And I was really delighted and inspired by that. So I really hope that this show, that you'll be as inspired as I am in terms of going forward. I will share with you, les digo que el show está grabado. It's being recorded right now on YouTube. Tomorrow it will be available, the recording will be available on YouTube, on Tribuna TV's website, Vimeo, Facebook, and probably other forms of social media as well. So what I wanted to do today is to open up by starting, as I've done before, an introduction and dedication to the show, and then we'll kick it off. We'll kick off the second anniversary. So por favor, Oscar, el primer slide, first slide. Okay, so at the top, second anniversary of Dr. Roy Aranda's TV show. And you can see that the host today, myself and Dr. Peter Kanaris. And Dr. Peter Kanaris has been a consultant of mine for some time now, and he's a very good friend. We go back at least 20 years, maybe longer, and he's become my right arm in many ways in helping with this particular show. So he will be interviewing me about what inspired the creation of this show, the nuts and bolts that went into doing the show. The show, I created it, and Peter, you and I will talk a little bit more about that later. The idea was to provide an educational, informative source program to the viewers that also would be empowering to them. I wanted to be a voice for those whose voices aren't heard, for those whose voices perhaps they are voiceless. They don't have the wherewithal, the ability to be heard, and I wanted to be a source of empowerment for them, and I will continue to do that. It's been very important for me to do that. There are going to be several screenshots highlighting a number of the 42, 41 shows prior to today. And at that point, I'll give you an explanation a little bit about what those screenshots are. So I'm dedicating the show, and I did want to make a point of saying how thrilled I am that the director, Don Emilio Ruiz, was the one who initially helped me spearhead the show. We were talking about it, and with his advice, with his help, with his assistance, I was able to get the first show started, and you'll see a little bit about that video clip. I also have Oscar Luna, who's here. Oscar is the producer here with me. I always introduce him and ask him to say hello. And Ezequiel Penado in El Salvador, he's the one that actually does the recordings and produces the video clips. So he's instrumental, and I wanted to give him a shout out as well. My consultant, Dr. Peter Kanaris, and all of my guests, because without the guests, I wouldn't have a show. So that said, puedes sacar a slide, and vamos a introducir a Peter. We're just going to start with you, Peter. Just say something about yourself. Hola! Just welcome the guests and say a couple of words about yourself.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me, Roy, during this time to offer what assistance I can in the development of your shows. I think we know each other for a very long time, and we've been friends for a long time, and to be in that role has been one that for me, I've also had a long career in public education, and I had gotten away from that for a time, but when you began this TV show, it was an opportunity to participate again in providing what I always felt was such a needed service to the public, to provide information psychologically based that is helpful and can enhance the lives of the public. I felt also particularly that because the show was addressing a bilingual audience, that it would reach people that commonly have not been considered or have not been reached by this type of medium very often before. So when you gave me that opportunity to participate with you, it was wonderful, and I'm glad to have been doing it, and I hope to continue.
Well, you're the boss, so thank you. And you actually take the helm as the host right now.
Okay.
So I'm going to be in the hot seat.
So we're gonna turn it around. You're the guy normally doing the interviewing, and you're the guy who typically asks all the questions. So today we'll have an opportunity to hear from you and to better understand some of the aspects of the show and what it's about. So the first question I would ask you, very basically, is how did you decide to create the show? And was there a particular inspiration that led to it? And if you would also tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, a little bit more about myself to start with would be that I am a psychologist licensed in the state of New York going back to 1983. So that's quite a while. I'm giving my age away a little bit. And, I evolved. I knew that I wanted to be a psychologist going back to when I was 17 years old. I started by doing some volunteer work at Lifeline Center for Child Development with special needs children in a Saturday recreational program. And I loved it. I loved it. And I attended, they invited me to attend a team meeting. And this was my first exposure to a psychologist. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to do. I never deviated from that. But what did evolve over the years was what is it that I'm interested in the field of psychology to do, who my audience will be, and the kinds of work that I'd want to do. And I went through quite an evolution in doing that. And I had, interestingly, I was doing a lot of clinical work, and then I taught at Hofstra University for about 16 years. And around that time as well, I decided that I wanted to further advance my studies in psychology, and I got a postdoc in neuropsychology. And then since a lot of the themes that I was covering had some legal component, I thought it makes sense for me to see if I can study law. And people around me were telling me I was crazy. I mean, I was definitely no spring chicken at the time to start law school.
I was one of them at the time.
Oh, you were? Okay. Well, so was my father. My father said I'm crazy to do this. And I decided, well, let me at least do a year. I thought, let me do a year of law school so I can do some civil proceeding. I can do some work on criminal law. And I really wasn't dying to do the contract law, but I wanted the civil and the torts and the criminal piece. So what happened though is that I immersed myself in this world that's totally different. The way you reason, the way you think, things are more black and white. You don't have shades the way we do so much in psychology, shades of gray. And after a while, my reasoning started becoming more law directed, and lo and behold, after a year I did so well, I decided let me continue. And long story short, by the time I finished 4 years of what really amounted to torture, I ended up graduating with, I won some graduate award, a distinguished student award that I won, and I also had become I developed a newsletter as well. So you can see that I've always been into creating, writing kinds of things. So even then I created a newsletter for the school. And I became the president of the graduates of the Law School Student Association as well. So I did have some interest going back then in being involved in doing community and professional and school-related kinds of services. Over the years, my practice in forensic psychology took off, but it wasn't until I was injured. I was injured in 1990. This is probably a Gestalt aha experience. In 1990, I hurt my back in the process of helping to subdue an agitated patient. The patient wasn't attacking me personally, but in terms of trying to be of assistance and restraining the patient gently, I was injured. My back was injured, and after that, the back deteriorated, as you know, further and further, and I decided that it was a wonderful opportunity to move into this field of occupational psychology. I started working with people who had been injured, no-faults car accidents, work injuries, personal injuries, and I dedicated most of my life since then to working with pain patients. As you know, one of the shows that we did was with pain patients, and I felt I could relate so much to them because I'm one of you. So I know what you're going through. I kept the forensic piece going.
But you were hurt, and not too long after that, you took that trip to Cuba, didn't you?
Right. The door knocked. I answered it. I wasn't that badly injured at that point in time that I wasn't feeling the effects that much, and that's when I did the involvement with the Happy Land trial with the Cuban Marielita, and the attorney contacted me because I had met him and he knew that I spoke Spanish, and that was a trip that involved taking an outing to Cuba, which was like unique. I wrote a story about it. And then many years later, I went back to Cuba as part of Long Island Hispanic Bar Association. I was secretary of the association, and we had a little tour. They were arranging and opening the tours back then. And somebody asked me, what changed? And I said, well, the buses are a little bit nicer. They have these nice new buses now. So, I mean, it looked like a city that was like an enchanted city, that time had spared, and you had the cars that were classic cars that I remembered back in 1990, and here are those same classic cars. It was amazing. What it did for me, though, is it transformed me because I mixed the past with the present, and I sort of now morphed both of them, which is what I did with my profession, by the way. I did the same with psychology and law. I would attend.
You mentioned the Happy Land case. That was a major case at that time.
That was the one with the Marielita, and then after that, the one with the guy that the conspiracy to blow up the bridges and the IRS building and in Manhattan, the pretty much the one with the blind sheik Omar Abdel Rahman. So I did those forensic cases. But my heart reached out more and more to working with people who were injured. I thought that these high-profile cases are very interesting and time-consuming and require a lot of research and work. But my heart was more into being able to work with a female who had been abused by her husband in El Salvador, Guatemala, or Honduras, and was seeking to escape the torture and petitioning asylum. And to the extent that I was able to be a part of that and to help have her receive the relief that she was looking for, that meant much more to me because I was really touching somebody really at the level of heart, much more than at the level of brain and psychological sophistication in terms of the tools and the forensic tools and all the resources that we have. I thought heart began to mean more to me, and that led to my contacting Emilio because I knew that I had had a relationship with him in the newspaper. I used to write an advice column. So I was surprised to find out that he had this TV show. And he came to my office and we talked about it, and that same day I decided to sign on, and I signed a contract, I think maybe for about half a year or so. And I've been doing it ever since then, and at first it was once a month, and then it evolved to twice a month, and I've been doing it for twice a month to the point that you can see 43 shows in 2 years. So
it really sounds to me that in the evolution of your career and your experience, it's been a blending of professional and personal experience that took you from clinical psychology to forensic psychology and the law to people who have been hurt, injured, suffering from pain in occupational settings and situations like that. I happen to know that you went on beyond that and got very involved in professional governance, having been a past president of the New York State Psychological Association, very active in Hispanic associations on Long Island. So having done all of that, it's almost like it then led to this point in time where you moved more heavily into public education through the use of the media and the creation of this show.
I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. It just seemed like something, let's try it. But you'll recall that even years before that, I was always interested in supporting students and in giving scholarships to students. My belief always was that the students will inherit the profession. They will take over. We need to be protective of them. So I was always wanting to give something back to society. I felt that my career, I've had ups and downs, I've had bruises and bumps, we all have, but I felt that overall it's been very good, and I wanted to give something back not only to my profession but to the people. And what better way than to service people than by giving them a voice, by being a voice of the disenfranchised. I've always wanted to champion those people who I thought were getting, forgive my word, screwed in some way or another, either by an insurance company, by other professionals, by by organizations, that they didn't have a voice, that they were just railroaded, and also especially those who had maybe limited financial means, limited educational means, and perhaps language or cultural barrier, and they're just patronized and treated like really second and third rate citizens. And I've never liked that. I've always wanted to speak up for them, and this show opened up that door.
I see. You know, the focus of the show, you know, if you look at the shows, it's clearly educational. You know, again, that resonates with my background in public education. More specifically, I'm wondering how you decide on what topic to present. What's that process like?
Well, it's really, there's always some sort of an inspiration, which is why I decided as part of the show that I'd give an inspiration, what it was that inspired me to do the show. It might be something that I felt, or it might be something that I experienced with the patient, and I thought this is something that I'd like to work on. For instance, occupational injuries and the plight of patients who are denied treatment in a very spurious manner by 5-minute evaluations that are done by independent, so-called independent medical examiners. So it might be something like that, or it could be something in the news. I'm very inspired by the news. For instance, when I saw the plight of children separated from their parents, I knew I had to do a show. When I saw that little girl crying when they grabbed her father, and she's crying and she's saying, "Please, Mr. President, give me back my father," I was almost driven to tears. I knew I had to do a show about that. When I saw the victims in Texas of the shooting, and how horrible it was, and the racist element that went into it, I knew I had to do a show about that. When I saw what happened over Hanukkah with the rabbi who was butchered in his own home, and I knew, wow, we have all of this hatred and violence that's directed towards Hispanics, towards Christians, towards Jews, Muslims, African Americans, LGBTQ. I mean, we have it's almost like we're encapsulating people, and it's them, us, them. And I said to myself, I'm living in supposedly the country that's the most advanced, but how can this be advanced? How can, when you have all of this hatred? When I saw the hurricanes that ravaged Puerto Rico, and then the earthquakes in Puerto Rico, I knew that I had to do a show about that. Looking at the hurricanes, now looking at the tragedy and the horrific disaster that's taking place in California and Oregon. Oh my God! I worry that half the country's going to go in fire. And you better believe I'd like to do an updated show on that. So it's always been something inspirational. The shutdown of the government did it for me too.
Yeah. So it's clear that there's no shortage of inspirations and ideas that occur to you as a motivation to do a particular show. But I wonder now, okay, these shows are not just you providing education, but you need guests. And I'm wondering how you go about finding suitable guests for a particular show, for a particular topic.
Well, I've been active in several listservs. I mean, I've been actively involved in the USA Psychological Association, Suffolk County Psychological Association, several other professional organizations and law associations as well. So the Hispanic Neuropsychological Society. So I knew that I had recourse to reach out to certain people. So what I would do is, like, when I had a particular thought, when I had like an inspiration for a particular show, I would, the first thing is you think about it. I mean, the process is, I think about it. It's not an immediate thing. I think about it. I ponder it. I come back to it. I start writing. I start immediately writing. I may write a sentence down just to memorialize it save it, and then I'll come back to it. I start doing some research. I'll do Google searches. I'll read articles. I'll try to educate myself on it. And then I look to see who do I think might be a good fit for that topic, having developed a good relationship with many professionals, which is how I reached out to you, because I knew your background in workers' compensation. And I reached out to Dr. Christina Vaglic, a psychiatrist, because I knew her background in working with workers' compensation too. And that was the basis for the first show. So getting the guests has always been, it's an art form. You need to reach out to the guests. I've often opened up the door, asked people to contact me. Probably more often than not, regrettably, I'm not entirely sure how to change that, but more often than not, I'm not getting like an outpouring of responses. So again, I have to like do a little bit of work and writing and cajoling and I'll look someone up on the internet. So I'll search their bio and say, oh, they have this background. Let me make the offer. And I've also done a lot of conferences. So I'm putting conferences together. I've had guests and I've seen what they've done. So I've also been able to reach out that way. And I've had some close friends, like my friend Dave Sperling, an attorney who specializes in immigration. I've had him as a guest several times.
I'm wondering if it's been now during the pandemic. Prior to that, very often your guests would be in studio with you. But just as we're talking now remotely, you've had a number of shows, even before the pandemic, but certainly since the pandemic, where the guest is remote.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, is it different for you whether the person's with you in the studio or something like this where it's remote? And also, is there greater access to having a guest? Because now a person could be in another state and you can... the
accessibility, of course, is wonderful. I've had Tony Puente as a guest at least twice, and he's always been away. So, of course, accessibility is great. I love that. I've always liked having the guests in the studio, but it hasn't necessarily been realistic because you need to worry about things like, can the guests make it to the studio on that day at that time, given that the studio is in Brentwood, Long Island? So it's got to be someone reasonably accessible. And to the credit of some of my guests, they've come from New Jersey, they've come from the Bronx, they've come from Westchester. They put some effort in coming to see me. But Skype makes it so much more accessible. It really opens up the door. For me, it's fine. Also, I'm pretty sure that the technological skill set of Oscar, Ezekiel, Emilio, myself, not so much, has improved. So you actually look at the monitor, and we look a little bit like CNN at this point in time. It's a nice big image. I mean, it didn't used to be that way. It was like smaller. It wasn't more faded. The audio wasn't as good. So it's become crisper. Our own technology has adapted and become better. I can cite later when I do some screenshots what was the first shot that I mentioned coronavirus, and then what was the last time that I actually had a guest with me. But this works out fine. It works out fine. The preparation's a little bit different. I've always liked the guests being with me because I'm a touchy-feely, huggy type of person. So I do like that. But also, realistically, with the coronavirus, I wouldn't be doing the touchy, huggy-feely anymore anyway. So what's the point? It doesn't matter. I think we need to respect the need to keep physical distance, not social distance. We need to be socially connected. But we need to be physically distant within a reason for our safety. So I really want to make a distinction that. So even if and when all of this comes to an end, I'm going to welcome some of the changes, and we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Doing a show is not free. It also costs money. I wonder if you could share how the show is financed, and also if you could talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the production of the show.
Okay. Well, it starts basically, like I said, in terms of my coming up with an idea, writing it down, jotting it down, going back to it, putting it together. As I develop it, it goes through several editions. So I may call it, TV show such and such a date, preview or preliminary report. What I've done as I develop the show, and I've asked you for your help, is I've included you more and more often in showing you some of the product and in fine-tuning the product and developing it, so that finally the final product consists of slides, a first slide that's the dedication, inspiration, whatever slides we're going to use, and the resources. In terms of the production, I submit my material to Oscar, who is here with me now, and he's responsible for the televised portion of it. Ezekiel in El Salvador is actually doing the recording and will send me the recording tomorrow. It'll become available and posted, and that's what I'm able to distribute. Ezekiel also creates a video promo. The video promo, I ask my guests always to give me a photo, give me a brief bio, and we come up with the title that we agree on. Then I have to print it, and I make the recording myself. Ezekiel uses my recording, and he puts it within the context of the video promo that I'm guessing some of the people who are watching may have seen, since I promoted it before. You're able to actually see the promo. So
it's not something that just jumps out of the can. It's really an involved process with different phases to it.
Right, and there's also,
really get the finished product.
I also have a hosting site. Like if you go to Tribuna TV's website, there's an area, a hosting for live en vivo. That's where the shows en vivo are recorded. And then if you go down a little bit, you'll see my face, and that's the hosting site. And that holds all of my shows. So I have to pay hosting fees, the production costs, and it's monthly, and I'm assimilating the entire cost. And I'm not looking for any, I'm not looking to develop my private practice because of it. It doesn't interest me to do that. That's not my purpose in doing it.
Have you considered getting sponsors for the show?
I would, but I'm not entirely sure how to go about. This is something that I came into this with zero knowledge. And over the 2 years, I've developed a certain skill set. I'm able to talk about it. I'm able to give some ideas of how to go about doing this and so forth. But I'm really not too clear on how to go about attracting sponsors or having somebody take notice of me in a more standard news media like News 12, Cablevision, CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News. I mean, I have to believe that I'm providing some sort of a service that's of interest and newsworthy, but I'm puzzled why I don't get a phone call saying, "Gee, Dr. Aranda, what would you like to be a guest on our show?" And I don't know how to do that. I don't have that ability.
You know, I happen to know that you mentioned the news shows. I happen to know that you had made a number of appearances on News 12, particularly with the, as I recall, the Gilgo Beach murders and other topics as well. Those TV appearances, were they formative at all? Did they prepare you in any way for being on screen and running a show like this?
Not really, because I was never particularly crazy about the way they give you a 10-minute or so interview and then they amputate it down to like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you don't have any say over what it is that you think should be said. I mean, if I have control over this.
Yes.
but I don't have control, and they decide to put in whatever they want to, and then they loop it in with other people. So I'm really very disinclined to want to do that, because they can misrepresent what you say if you're not careful. They can misrepresent your degree. They give wrong degrees. They give misspellings. It's really something that I won't stay away from it if I'm asked. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that I'm really looking to do. A guest on a show is different, because they're actually giving you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour. You actually have a block of time.
Yes. You had mentioned earlier that, you've done 42 shows. Actually, this is the 43rd. Is that, was that expected? Is that surprising to you? And also, if you think over the shows, those 42 shows previous that have been done, do you have some favorites that you can share or talk about a little bit?
Well, funny that you ask. Yes, I do. And no, I never thought I was going to get into 43 shows. I never expected it. I guess it was like when I went to law school, I didn't expect to continue. But I did well at it, and I kept going at it, I'm not a quitter. I've always been somebody who, if I say I'm going to do something, I like to believe that I do it. I'm sure I've had my failings. But I really would like to see something get off the ground and continue with it. I'm delighted at how the show has developed. I'm going to ask Oscar now just to show the video clip, and then I'll show you some screenshots, okay?
Sounds good.
So we have a video clip, so I hope the viewers enjoy it. Va a poner Oscar, ¿verdad? El video.
Muy buenas noches, amigos de Tribuna TV, contentos de llegar una vez más a sus hogares en un programa súper especial. Hoy iniciamos el show con el doctor Roy Aranda. Es un amigo viejo de la casa y muy contentos de tenerlo a través de este espacio que vamos a estar hablando de salud mental en los próximos 60 minutos. El doctor Roy Aranda es una persona bilingüe, muy profesional, con sus oficinas tanto en Queens como en Long Island. Además ha servido en muchas actividades, en casos muy especiales en lo que tiene que ver con la ley. Este es una gran oportunidad que la comunidad hispana tiene de llamarlo por teléfono, de hacerle sus consultas. Muchos pacientes que él tiene disfrutarán este show. Esta noche tendremos a 2 invitados que lo estarán acompañando a él durante el resto del show.
Bueno, aquí estamos de vuelta, amigos televidentes, con la doctora Cristina Bagley, que estaba mirándola antes, pero ahora está aquí conmigo, y el doctor Peter Kanaris. Buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Estamos esta noche con 2 invitados. Estoy aquí con la doctora Dina Abbey. Buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Estamos aquí la tercera vez haciendo el show mío, del doctor Roy Aranda. Bueno, buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Estamos aquí hoy día, el 29 de noviembre. Quiero dar un saludo a todos los de Nueva York, de Nueva Jersey. Bien, buenas noches, saludos a todos los televidentes. Me atrevo ahora en el show, el quinto, decir, queridos televidentes, estamos aquí en enero del año 2019.
En este momento.
Qué gusto verlos nuevamente. Estamos aquí desde el año pasado, era diciembre 20, y ya estamos posiblemente.
War traumas and major catastrophes. I do a lot of consulting in New York City and in Jerusalem, Israel. I've done
La Vivian Cedeño, ella es abogada que especializa, creo, en ley de criminalidad.
Exactamente.
Y Adam Tavares. Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Good evening. my viewers, dear esteemed viewers. Esta noche vamos a hacer el show en inglés. Today we're doing the show in downtown Manhattan West Side, you know, running down the Argentinian bicyclists. And unfortunately, the most recent horrific queridos televidentes, disculpas de comenzar un poco tarde hoy. Apologies for starting a little bit late today. It is raining outside, and things happen. De vez en cuando llueve y uno corre un poco con... Estamos de vuelta el 2 de mayo. Otra vez está lloviendo hoy aquí en Long Island. Me imagino que todas partes en Nueva York. A saber cómo están los otros estados. I certainly hope and trust that all of you viewers are doing well, in good health. And I did want to extend my voice of good evening, my dear television viewers on Tribuna TV. Buenas noches, queridos. Queridos, what's the word? Esta semana voy a decir correctamente. As promised, it's raining again. It's Thursday. I think that my theme is going to be Rainy Thursday, Dr. Aranda TV show. Good evening, Tribuna TV viewers. Buenas noches, Tribuna TV televidentes. I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad that you decided to join us today. We're here. Happily, the myth of it raining every time I do a show was shattered today. It's not raining. It's a beautiful day outside. It was a beautiful day. I've done that from the Latino Psychological Association of New Jersey. I believe that I did something there. So she has many, many memberships. So without further ado, welcome. And
when the fire department or Brooklyn Ladder Company actually broke open a back door and pulled us out, we couldn't see, we couldn't breathe.
I was a victim in the past tense, but I guess maybe similar to an alcoholic, where they say when you recover, you're always an alcoholic. And I think as an alienated parent, I'll always be an alienated parent.
We need to understand what we can do, not only to cooperate with them and how to work with them and how to encourage and how to have and how to develop like liaison or team policies. ¿Puedo llamarte Carlos? ¿Es okay? ¿O tiene que ser Dr. Monzon?
Absolutely, that's perfect.
Okay. So his father, same name, was the chief in her consulting room, adding to the sense of warmth and safety that facilitate patient work. So welcome, Patty, and why don't you tell us a few more words about yourself? Okay, buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Ya estamos en noviembre. Good evening, my dear viewers from La Tribuna TV. We're already in November. How about that?
And it's the same odds to get pregnant. It's around 50%. So it may take several trials, and it can be unpredictable. So I just wanted to say that.
And there has to be some. His focus has been on tough cases. He's frequently called to work on with such couples. He supervised countless mediators in the work. He's been at the forefront of developing new mediation techniques.
Country, but certainly around the world. So I'm so sensitive to that, and thank you for bringing up about the world issues.
So it helps put things in perspective. Dan, did you have anything to add that I missed? Quakes and shortage of power and problems with water and other amenities. It's so horrific, and we already witnessed the devastation from Hurricane Maria in my heart. Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas noches, queridos televidentes del famosísimo show Tribuna TV. Good evening, my viewers from the famous Tribuna TV show. Buenas noches, good evening. Today, February 27th, Febrero 27, we have a long February. It's a leap year, February 29. I was sort of looking forward to it ending tomorrow. In Puerto Rico, in Isla Verde, we were in El Conquistador, and that goes back several years. Dr. Puente is founding director of UNCW Centro Hispano. Los televidentes de la Tribuna TV. Today is March 26, hoy es el día marzo 26. Estamos hoy con un programa nuevo.
Doctora, se fue del aire otra vez.
Ponme el 4.
Ahí está.
You can take photos right now, or once the video is posted, you can take screenshots, okay? So slide 3. This is that they're picking up right now.
So this is a situation which is going to psychologically probably persist longer than even the physical condition.
Good evening. Here I am, surprise, surprise. It's Dr. Aranda. Sorpresa, Dr. Aranda enmascarado. Como les prometí la semana pasada, as I promised you last week. So this places more of a burden on the parents or on the parent who's taking care of the children. Puede ponerme slide 3. I wanted to look now at tears in my eyes. I mean, it had that catastrophic kind of an impact on me. I knew that I had to do the show, and I knew that I needed to contact my words here and there will be incentive. I see you're wearing your professional veterinary garb. I mean, what will be available on Tribuna TV's website, Vimeo, Facebook, and probably on other electronic platforms. I encourage viewers, future dreams that they have in terms of getting past this. So we have a full show, and there'll be a few questions that I'll be directing to them. I do encourage. Okay, so like I said, I get goosebumps. What I wanted to do is to show some of the screenshots, okay? And we'll get into that, Peter, okay?
Sounds good, yes.
So, por favor, Oscar, me pones el slide 2. You could see, Peter, by the way, the evolution of Skype, how the pictures got bigger and bigger, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is basically at the top. It's the very first show, August 30, 2018, with you, Peter, and with Dr. Christina Vaglica, and we're focusing on occupational injuries. ¿Lo puedes bajar un poquito? The shows beneath that. There's a show there with my good friend David Sperling, where we were talking about la crisis inmigratoria, the immigration crisis. It seems to be an immigration crisis is never ending. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And now we're dealing with DACA, and we still have people that are stuck in the border, and now we have women coming forward saying that parts of their uterus seem to have been collected and removed without their permission. So it's a never-ending story. On the right, March 28th, that's the show, my first show with Dr. Tony Puente. He's a past president of the American Psychological Association and a past president of the Hispanic Neuropsychological Society. And by the way, he's the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award, Hispanic Neuropsychological Society, that will be given this month in just a matter of a few days. We were talking about...
He was also the first Latino president of the APA.
Yes. And we were talking about tragedies and disasters and hurricanes and things like that. Slide 3, por favor. So this is a little bit of show trickery. I look just as tall as my guest Conrado there, and I wanted to do the show as a shout out to veterans. I think that the veterans really are very deserving of our attention and our care and our respect and our consideration, and we need to really stay on top of them, especially now with the pandemic. But Conrado is like about 6'5". I am nowhere near 6'5". So I had Oscar here do a little slide of the hands with the chairs, and all of a sudden I am as big as he is. So that's a little bit of trickery.
But Also, Roy, what I would say in the evolution of the show, one of the things that I think was very nice was you did not limit it only to discussions with experts and other professionals, but you also had people who were affected by various life experiences, just everyday people come on and share their stories. And I think that brought another powerful feature to the show.
That's a human touch that I really relish, and I would like to have more of. Well, there you are again, Peter, dealing with digital infidelity, or should I say infidelity during a digital era? I'm not sure what's the better way of saying it, but that was the topic. And there you are. Beneath that, to the left, a very dear friend. Tienes que subirlo un poco. A very dear friend. That's a retired Captain Terry Rivella. This was after 9/11. I went with him. He had many people from the precinct that he was the captain of who were affected, and he brought them to me to do some crisis work, some first aid work, PTSD first aid crisis intervention. And he and I became progressively more and more friendly. And he started taking me out to Ground Zero, and I went with him many, many times to Ground Zero, and we did shows together, and I never forgot a single 9/11 event. I've always remembered it. I see 9/11 often in watches and symbols. It seems to grab me often enough. And I vowed to him that I would never forget. And this was a show that I wanted to do with him because he became sick. He caught a number of the illnesses from being there sacrificing himself on 9/11. And we have so many other victims of 9/11, even more victims after 9/11 who suffered the ravages of the toxic effects of 9/11. And these are people that are very much deserving our attention, our assistance, and our financial help in Congress and support. So Terry, a shout out to you. Peter, there you are again. I'm pretty sure that's the show that we did on pain.
Yes.
I don't know if I told you I was in pain that day. Truth is, I'm in pain every day. But it was. I thought it was a good show because everybody has pain, and we really focused on a lot of aspects of dealing with acute and with chronic pain. ¿Me puede poner el slide 4? So this is a mix of what Peter was saying. A professional on the right, my friend, Dr. Dinelia Rosa. She's the first Latino president of New York State Psychological Association in 2014. I was president in 2016, second and the first male, and that's a good friend. Marisol is a good friend, sitting on the screen to the left, to my right, and she actually had a family in Puerto Rico affected by the earthquakes. It was very devastating, and it was very, very scary. And Dinelia also is from Puerto Rico, and I knew that I wanted to do a show highlighting the impact. Puerto Rico was ravaged by two major hurricanes, Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Irma, and now on top of that we have earthquakes, and we still have earthquakes. They're not over. So it's really very unfortunate, and I hope again that people take sight of and consider the importance of Puerto Rico and the necessity that Puerto Rico has, especially now during a pandemic. Next to that is Dr. Tony Puente again. This is the first show, by the way, for the viewers that focused on the coronavirus. So if you can see it, the psychological consequences of coronavirus. I wasn't referring it back then as COVID-19. I was calling it coronavirus, but this was the first time. I know that we knew about the virus before that. I'm pretty sure that there's some information about it going back as early as December and certainly January of this year. but we really became very aware of it in March, and that's when I did my first show. Underneath that, por favor, levántalo un poquito. Another show with my good friend David Sperling. Now that particular show, which focuses on many of the themes of the show since then, have had something to do with COVID-19, because we live in a COVID-19 era. No matter what we do, we go outdoors, there's COVID-19. We go to a store, there's COVID-19. We're wearing masks. We're keeping physical distancing. I think that that's the better term than social distancing. We're avoiding many places to congregate. So there's been, I don't want to get into the entire spiel about it, but our life now is a COVID-19 existence. And with this particular show, it was my interest in really highlighting the increased exposure and risk Hispanics have, as well as African Americans, to COVID-19, and some of the racial inequalities, the racism that they are experiencing every day. The one next to that is my good friend Ben Reese at the top. We went to school, Rutgers, together, so I've known him for a very long time. And beneath him is an attorney who is specializing in some aspects of civil law. And the show really dealt with the theme of the dual pandemics of racial violence and COVID-19, and certainly I wanted to emphasize Black Lives Matter. Again, it's something that's out there, that we're looking at, that we're dealing with, that we're experiencing every day. There isn't a day goes by we're not in some way marred, our society is not in some way marred or affected by racial inequalities, by racism, by some form of a diversity-based discrimination. La próxima slide, 5. I saved this one for last for 2 reasons, Peter. The top one, which actually was February 27th, and to my right, on the left of the screen, is Shara Sand and Lenny Davidman, a good friend of mine, and a past president of New York State Psychological Association, and Jewish. I really wanted to point out, again, the impact of hate crimes. This particular show focused on hate crimes, not just directed towards Jews, but directed towards many religions and many cultures and many nationalities. But I wanted to emphasize this because tomorrow is Rosh Hashanah, is the Jewish New Year, tomorrow. And a week from tomorrow, we have Yom Kippur. So my greetings to my Jewish friends, Jewish viewers, Jewish colleagues. May you be blessed with a Happy New Year. And my wish will be that hopefully, as we head into a 2021, I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that we start seeing less hatred and less discrimination. On the bottom, this is the last screenshot, and my rationale for wanting to show this one, Peter, is the reinventing ourselves. And the reason that I wanted to show this for last is that I wanted to emphasize to the viewers that we can't control COVID-19. It's there. We're not responsible for it. We can't control it. It's there. But that doesn't mean that we have to yield to it. We have to succumb to it. Despite all of the horrors that this pandemic has caused, we are able to muster our strength, our creative abilities, our coping strategies, and master this and survive and go forward. We must do this for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our children, and for their children. Puedes sacar el slide. Peter, I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Do you have any comments on those last powerful messages? Because I really, to me, really the the fighting and the pandemic and the fighting to overcome discrimination. You know,
Yes.
those are really two pandemics as I see it.
Yeah, and it's, this year has been, what comes to my mind, Roy, the closest I can remember in my lifetime was 1968, where we had the protests for Vietnam, the assassinations, the issues with civil rights at the time, but there was no pandemic. Yeah, this year in my lifetime, I can't compare anything to it. With what and it's not over yet. We've got more adventures that lie ahead before this year is complete, and I think that's where this program and what we can do in psychology to foster unity, to foster a sense of peacefulness and an acceptance of each other. Maybe we're not powerless. Maybe we can influence the lives that we lead for the better. And I think this show has been part of that. So a question I have for you, as we kind of wind down is, you've completed 2 years of this program. I was fortunate to be on the very first one and to be part, to be helpful as I can in some of the shows. I'm wondering, how long do you hope to continue the program, and what are your plans for the future, for future shows?
Well, I don't know if you remember that movie with Tom Hanks, Castaway, where he says, I learned that what I have to do is I have to breathe, because tomorrow is another day, and you never know what sail will come my way, because he got a sail and he escaped from the island. That's my attitude. I have to breathe. Tomorrow's another day, and I'm going to continue doing this as long as I am erect and vertical. I want to continue. I'll continue doing it to that point.
I hope that's for a long time.
I did want to ask you though. You've how did your role start on this show? Now I'm going to interview you a little bit. How did you start? How did you develop this role? Because you're celebrating a second anniversary too.
Yeah, and having been on the first show, I feel very connected to it, and I think it's that call I get from Aranda. I'll get that call, whether it's to be a guest or whether it's a text at 2:00 in the morning to review some thoughts and to maybe do a little editing or reflecting on some questions or some slides, and that, I think that involvement, which really is from our friendship, that's not something that I would just do. It's something I do for you, and that is from our history and from the friendship that we've had, and I do it with joy. It's something that has been a participation that I've enjoyed. Very pleased to see that has continued over these last 2 years and hopefully into the future.
I was hoping that the call alone had a little bit more strength than the friendship for other people, but for what it's worth, that I always reinforce and promote my guests. I'm very careful to do that. I want to make sure that they know how appreciated they are. So to whatever extent viewers can spread the word and other guests can spread the word, it would be great. I've jumped into second place for this show, which was a complete and total surprise. I didn't even know that Emilio kept those statistics. And I think at first I'm wondering to myself, what does this mean? And I looked at myself, and at first I didn't register. And then I was like in 5th place, and then 3rd place, and then lo and behold, now I'm in 2nd place. I don't pretend ever to catch up to first, because I think it's more of a talk show type of a thing, and I'm not going to do that talk show type of mentality. But I do have some ideas for the future, and then we'll wrap up with the resources, and we'll say goodnight. Some thoughts that I have for the future, and I welcome viewers calling, texting, writing, giving me their thoughts on what they would like to hear more about. But for instance, coping with hunger. I mean, I'm seeing food lines, people that lost work There's food lines. People are starving. They're unemployed. They're embarrassed. They feel ashamed. They need food. So something in that area. Coping with hunger in America. Returning or not returning to school. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's an experiment. We don't know. It's an experiment. We don't know what the outcome is going to be 3 months from now. New challenges as the fall, cold weather, flu season come upon us. We're going to start having more symptoms and more hot spots and who knows what. I mean, things are going to start getting, I think, unfortunately bad for the next few months. But again, we have to rise above it. We have to rise above it and prepare ourselves. The impact of separations and deaths in our new world. People who couldn't hold hands of a loved one. They couldn't go to funerals. They couldn't depart with them. They couldn't say things. So I really would like to reach viewers who actually would want to come as guests to talk about their own personal experiences. I would like to do that. Coping with non-pandemic tragedies. Look at the fire in California. That's not the pandemic that caused it, but it's horrible. And can you imagine what it's like having to deal with that and go into shelters now during a pandemic? So, of course, that's something that I want to focus on and revisit coping strategies as the year comes to an end. One of the things that I would like to do that's a little bit different is I'd like to call on you from time to time the way CNN and MSNBC and Fox News does with their regulars, and just have, call you in and have you comment on a particular topic or a particular subtopic of a show.
Indeed.
So that's about it for me. What we can do now is show the resources, and you can say your final words, and I'll say my final words, and we'll call it a wrap.
Well, finally, what I would say is congratulations. Congratulations on the accomplishment, on the continued contribution and evolution of your career. I'm glad to participate with it, and as you say, even to have my participation evolve. And let's breathe and let's take it that one moment at a time that you were suggesting before.
Oscar, pon el último slide. I want to show the resources for the viewers. I've shown the slide before. I want to make sure that you all are aware that you can contact you can contact me. As you can see, my business card is there. Peter, you just want to shout out your phone number because I don't know how clear it is on that business card.
Yeah, my phone number is 631-979-2640, and my website is cyberinfidelityhelp.com.
New York State Psychological Association. Beneath that, it's my home away from home, and I love that association. I want them to know this. And so I'm happy to promote them. There's the website and the phone number. They do a wonderful amount of work, especially the Disaster Resource Network right now that's working with people stemming from all sorts of problems because of the pandemic. So we really are offering a lot of material. The American Psychological Association, the parent association of all the states and provinces. Again, any state has an association. Just look it up on the internet. Suffolk County Psychological Association. That's that's sort of like another home away from home because I live in Suffolk, and they're really a great, wonderful group of people. And for a relatively small association, it's amazing the amount of work that they do. So kudos to you. So we've reached the end. Oscar, si tú quieres despedirte.
Felicidades, doctor, y gracias a los televidentes y al doctor Kanaris.
Peter, if you want to just say a good night, a last shout out.
Well, and thanks to Oscar as well for his hard work in helping the production along, making it happen.
And I want to thank all the viewers for your support. Without you, I guess I wouldn't be in second place. So thank you all. I hope that you're really deriving benefit from this. And I really believe, Peter used the word maybe. I would eliminate the word maybe because I think that we can overcome this. I don't think we maybe can overcome it. I'm a believer that we can. I do believe that we can. We have a lot of inner strength. We need to tap it. We need to believe it. When we're hurting, we need to reach out to professionals or to family members or to others. Remember your neighbors. Remember your community. Don't leave people behind. That's a wonderful quote about the military. Regards to the military, regards to cops, I think that police are doing a wonderful job too. There's a lot of people out there that really deserve a word of gratitude. Our postal workers, fire departments, hospitals. I mean, I'll be here another half hour, but like, you know, really all the first responders, my heart goes out to you. We're blessed to have you. And I think we have a lot of strength, Peter. I really do. I think we have a lot of strength. We just have to target it a little bit more efficiently. And with that, I say good night. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
¿Qué te parece?